Incredible moment, poor waitress discovers a surprising way to calm millionaire CEO's crying baby. Sarah wiped sweat from her brow as she rushed to fill an order, the vibrant sounds of the diner feeding into her bustling energy. Busy waitresses zipped past her, absorbing the ingredients of everyday chaos. The smell of greasy fries and freshly brewed coffee filled the air, dances of laughter and conversation harmonizing. It was another hectic morning, but Sarah forced a smile, pushing her dreams of nursing to the recesses of her mind. Life in New York City was an unyielding grind, yet every shift upheld the unyielding rhythm of survival for her and her younger brother, Liam, who depended on her every day. The door swung open with a crash, and Sarah barely glanced up as a whirlwind entered, clutching a howling infant in one arm and a briefcase in the other. David, the high-powered CEO, exuded the kind of urgency that echoed through the room, his frantic assistant trailing behind him. Patrons paused mid-bite, drinks poised mid-sip as their eyes darted toward the commotion. "What do you mean you couldn't find a sitter?" David's voice boomed, drowning out the clinking of dishes and muffled conversations. His panic morphed into disbelief as he scolded his assistant, who looked as despondent as the baby. Sarah felt her breath hitch. Was this just a reflection of her world? A reminder of how tenuous every thread in her life was? The crushing anxiety of supporting Liam pressed heavier against her chest. That it's not my problem. It's just chaos, she told herself. Yet, seeing the despair carved into David's features stirred something deep within her, a kinship born from unspoken burdens. Her heart raced. Would it be irresponsible to intervene? After all, this man likely had no understanding of her struggles. But something compelled her, chasing away the voice that screamed to choose self-preservation. Before she knew it, Sarah stepped forward, vulnerability tugging at her resolve. She approached, kneeling beside David, as if in a trance. Drawing on the childhood lullabies from her grandmother, her voice a gentle murmur that seemed to elude the din. She started to hum a melody drenched in love, a fragment of a life more innocent than the bustling chaos surrounding them. The baby quieted, its cries faltering as the soothing notes enveloped the diner like a warm embrace. Sarah watched their eyes shift, surprised faces breaking into soft astonishment, a calm settling like a dusting of powdered sugar. David's frustrated gaze softened the moment he briefly acknowledged her. Yet even as he visibly relaxed, she felt the pulse of a nagging fear curling around her heart. What would happen if someone like him, someone worlds away from her daily struggles, recognized her worth? What if he saw through her facade as a waitress to the dreams she clutched so tightly? Fear twisted with a flicker of hope. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the muted conversations resumed, Sarah's pulse quickened. David's fierce, corporate demeanor held an unexpected glimmer of vulnerability as they began talking amidst the mundane chatter. Yet, the joy swiftly unraveled as they both confronted their truths. Her dreams of nursing felt a million miles away, heavy just as his relentless pursuit of ambition seemed to drive him further from genuine connections. Their lives orbiting chaos, would either of them break free? The question hung in the air, oppressive, as the strains of the lullaby lingered, a stark probe into the complexities lying ahead. Every spark ignited whispered possibilities of what lay ahead. Would he pull her into his world, or stumble back into the shadows of his corporate life, unintentionally leaving her behind? The diner hummed a bittersweet symphony, the weight of uncertainty wrapping around both their futures, casting a long shadow over what might come next. Sarah found herself caught in a fragile web of possibility. As the diner buzzed around her, she took a deep breath, the vibrant fragrances of breakfast filling her lungs, grounding her in the moment. It was a refuge from the gnawing tension of her life outside these walls, where each day felt like a battle against unpaid bills and unfulfilled dreams. "Thank you," David said, his voice softer now, a stark contrast to his earlier fury. The baby cooed at her, babbling in response to the soothing tones that had momentarily eased its distress. For a fleeting instant, Sarah felt an exhilarating rush of validation. It was as if the world around her had momentarily paused, recognizing her ability to foster calm amidst chaos. Yet, alongside this light, a shadow loomed large. How long could she hold on to this moment before the realities of her life clawed back for attention? "I appreciate your help," David continued, his fatigued expression revealing the burdens he carried, pressures that mirrored her own. "It's been a tough morning." A delicate silence settled between them, charged with unspoken understanding. Sarah had begun to see beyond his corporate armor. Beneath the tailored suit was a man wrestling with responsibility and vulnerability. She noticed how tightly he gripped the briefcase, as if it contained every looming issue he faced. In that moment, Sarah recognized her own reflection in him, someone fighting tooth and nail to maintain control, yet always on the cusp of losing grip. "What's next on your agenda?" she asked, surprising herself with her boldness. The question drained some tension from her shoulders, and it felt like a stepping stone towards something greater. As David spoke about his overwhelming meetings and relentless deadlines, she transformed into a listener, absorbing his insights, her own ambitions slowly surfacing in tandem. "You seem like someone who cares," he remarked suddenly, piercing through her thoughts. Not every waitress could muster that kind of intuition about a crying child. His words resonated with a depth she hadn't anticipated. Flashes of her nursing dreams flickered in her mind, her desire to care for others, finding purpose in healing. The small steps toward achieving those dreams felt daunting, yet here she was, in an unexpected exchange with a man who could obliterate her world with a single misstep. Yet, there was a possibility there, a flicker that dared her to take more than just orders in a diner. With each passing minute, her dread oscillated with newfound determination. What if she allowed this moment, this serendipitous connection, to plant the seeds of change? Could it be the catalyst for awakening dormant aspirations? "I might not wear a suit or carry a briefcase," Sarah replied, her tone steadying, "but I know the weight of responsibility. Every day is another opportunity to make connections, even in the chaos." The words flowed with a confidence she didn't know she had, tearing down the barriers she had constructed around her heart. David studied her, a flicker of intrigue crossing his features. "And what do you dream of when you're not here?" he probed, encouraging her to reveal a piece of herself that rarely saw the light of day. She hesitated, the weight of vulnerability pressing against her newfound resolve. Would unleashing her dreams lead to disappointment if left unfulfilled? Or could sharing them ignite a path forward, perhaps even inspiration for herself? In the tension of his gaze, she found the courage to utter, "Nursing. I've always wanted to help others heal." She could feel the leap of faith crackling in the air between them. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. David's expression shifted, the wheels in his mind visibly turning. "Well then," he said slowly, his tone shifting as if he recognized a shared mission, "let's talk about how you can get there." Her heart raced, each beat echoing possibilities. But just as excitement bubbled up, doubt rushed in. Was this moment genuine, or just a fleeting interaction in an endless expanse of corporate ambition? As he reached for his phone, intent on making notes, something in her gut tightened. What if those who wielded power held the potential to effect real change, and she had inadvertently forged a connection that could lead to her nursing dreams? Yet the reality remained. She stood at the precipice. It was a critical juncture. The decision weighed heavy on her shoulders as the diner buzz faded into the background. Would she step into this uncertain opportunity, or would she retreat back to safety, allowing fear to dictate her path? The moment teetered on the brink, and Sarah knew that whatever happened next could change the course of her life forever. Sarah's heart raced as David's fingers glided over his phone's screen, his focus shifting entirely towards her. Each tap amplified her sense of urgency, igniting a spark inside her, a flame that threatened to consume her indecision. The cacophony of the diner faded, replaced by the steady thrum of her own thoughts. Was the universe conspiring to push her toward her dreams, Or was this merely a mirage, a fleeting brush with ambition? "You're passionate," David remarked, leaning closer as if to close the distance between their worlds. "That's an asset in any field, especially nursing. Have you ever considered furthering your education?" His words took her by surprise, propelling her into a whirlwind of contemplation. I have," she stammered, her throat dry as the weight of her unsung aspirations cascaded over her like a tidal wave. "But it's impossible with my schedule and the bills." Financial strain had always been a barrier, a chokehold on her desires. "I understand." David leaned back, his posture shifting, becoming more at ease. "But what if we broke it down? What if we identified a small step you can take today? Sometimes it's just about starting with something manageable," he suggested, the sincerity in his voice urging her to let down her guard. Could it really be that simple? It felt like a gamble, but her instincts prickled with the thrill of possibility. A tentative idea flickered in her mind, a course she could start online, work toward during her shifts and free hours. "I could look into classes," she mused, the notion swelling within her. "But where would I find the time or the money? Have you considered applying for financial aid? Many programs have resources for working students, especially in healthcare," he provided, as if he had been positioned to steer her at this moment. She instinctively tightened her grip on the order pad in front of her. The fear of failure loomed over her like a thundercloud. "But what if I don't get in? What if I can't manage both? What if it all falls apart?" The voice of doubt was suffocating. "Then you adjust," he replied calmly, so confident in his perspective. "You give yourself the grace to try. Life isn't about guarantees, Sarah, it's about the pursuit. Isn't that worth the risk?" His encouragement struck a chord deep within her but also stirred the anxieties that had long been tucked away. The thought of taking a risk felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering over the unknown. "Do you really think I can do this? That I would be good enough?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Absolutely. You have this innate ability to connect and calm, and that's the essence of nursing. You're already healing people without even realizing it." His gaze held hers with intensity, igniting the hope she was desperately trying to snuff out. Each word wrapped around her, tugging at the edges of her confidence. Could she be more than just a waitress? This moment felt like a sunrise emerging from a dark night, a promise of warmth and potential just out of reach. Now, excitement bubbled in her chest. Yet, just as her resolve began to solidify, her stomach twisted. The reality of her daily struggles loomed like a dark shadow, threatening to swallow the light she was starting to feel. "What about the money?" she countered, her pragmatism rearing its head again. "Let's set actionable steps. I can connect you with resources, I'm sure there are scholarships available. But you need to make moves. It starts with you." His voice resonated with unwavering faith, and for the first time, she felt someone believed in her potential. "What if I work on the application tonight?" she whispered, feeling the adrenaline rush through her veins. The lingering doubts wrestled with the sparkle of ambition, reflecting her internal tug-of-war. What if this was the moment she had been waiting for? Just take the first step. That's all it takes to begin changing your life. David's encouragement simmered in her, filling her with a sense of unfathomable possibility. As he laid out a plan, one constructed of steps that felt both monumental and attainable, the heaviness that had burdened her heart lightened. She felt herself shifting, evolving an intersection of aspiration and determination. But just as the lights of hope glimmered in her mind, an ominous thought pierced through. Could she really hold on to this momentum once David was gone? With a sinking realization, she felt the weight of transition press against her chest. What if embracing this opportunity meant stepping into a new world where fear couldn't dictate her choices? As the conversation neared its conclusion, and David's commitments awaited him, Sarah sensed the clock ticking down on her chance to redefine her journey. It was time to confront her reality and embrace the unknown. Would she muster the courage to leap into the challenge lying ahead, or would she allow fear to reclaim her narrative? The moment arrived, a pivotal cut in her life's timeline, pregnant with possibility yet wrought with uncertainty, laying the groundwork for whatever came next. As the door to the diner swung shut behind David, Sarah sat with her thoughts swirling like a tempest. The sun dipped low, casting golden rays through the dusty windows, illuminating the cluttered tables and faded booths. The hum of conversation resumed, but she felt detached, floating in a world of her own making. The prospect of further education appeared less like a dream and more like a tangible path, yet her mind wavered. Could she really carve out a life beyond these diner walls? Poring over the advice David had given her, she felt a mixture of exhilaration and dread. What came next required fortitude, a bold leap. The overwhelming weight of her responsibilities flooded back, threatening to drown her renewed motivation. Rubbing at the waning light, she sought solace in day-to-day tasks, yet each chore felt laden. The same old routine had cocooned her for too long, now it felt suffocating. Abandoning her post at the counter, Sarah grabbed her phone, determined to confront the looming reality. She opened a web browser, her fingers trembling as she searched for online nursing programs. Her heart pounded out a rhythm of encouragement. With each click, her ambition began to crystallize into something viable. She quickly opened a site that outlined various courses. The financial aid section beckoned to her like a siren, promising something she had long deemed impossible. Scholarships, grants, words that swelled within her, challenging her to push beyond. Yet, the thought of filling out applications brought an immediate wave of nausea. What if she missed out? What if she wasn't good enough? Each question ricocheted within the walls of her mind, threatening to pull her back, but just beneath that sharp pull of anxiety, something else unfurled, a quiet determination. Last week, as she comforted a frightened child in the diner, she'd felt that unique pull toward caregiving, her natural instinct to nurture. It hadn't been some fleeting moment of clarity, it was a part of who she was. Could her lines of worry cross into lines of possibility? Steeling herself, she sat at a booth, the flickering neon sign of the diner offering a strange sense of comfort. Overcoming her fears would require more than courage, she'd need steadfast resolve. She began carefully crafting an outline for her application, laying out her personal story intermingled with her dreams. Words flowed with surprising fluidity, as if her inner voice had merely waited for this moment to be heard. Hours passed unnoticed, and the diner's late-night lull settled in around her. It was an intoxicating feeling, confronting her ambition in the face of doubt. Yet, a ghost of insecurity loomed at the edges of her accomplishment. What would happen after she submitted her application? Would she still feel empowered, or would the fear of failure seep in once more? As she closed her laptop, Sarah's heart swelled with a mix of worry and exhilaration. She resolved to take a calculated risk. Small steps, after all, could lead to significant changes. But that didn't erase the creeping uncertainty, the fear that she might falter, and with faltering, crush her own dreams. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with a new message. A reminder from David flashed on the screen. Just remember, the journey begins with the first step. Did she truly believe him? The challenge ahead was daunting, yet exhilarating. For the first time, she toyed with the idea of sharing her aspirations with others, her coworkers, friends, perhaps even her family. What if they supported her? What if she inspired someone else to face their own fears? But with that thought came an uncomfortable gnawing. What if they scoffed at her ambitions? Would her dreams survive the scrutiny, or would she recoil back into the safe cocoon of her old life? With emotions churning within her once more, Sarah leaned back against the booth, grappling with the critical decision ahead. The moment of truth had arrived, and the path before her teetered on the edge of possibility. Would she risk everything to ensure this wouldn't be just another idle fantasy? As her determination solidified, a new message blinked at her: the deadline for applications is tomorrow. Don't let fear win. With her heart racing in sync with her determination, Sarah knew she had to decide: would she move forward and claim her future, or would she allow doubt to eclipse the opportunity stretching before her? The next chapter of her life lingered in the air, thick with anticipation, beckoning her to take the plunge. Would she find the courage to submit her application and redefine her path, or would she let this moment slip by, unaddressed? Shifting back into the routine of the diner the next day felt like slipping on a threadbare sweater, familiar yet constrictive, comforting yet stifling. Sarah busied herself with the daily tasks, pouring coffee, wiping down counters, exchanging light banter with customers, all the while feeling the echoes of her unresolved ambitions ringing in her ears. The weight of the application deadline loomed larger in her mind, relentless. Every time she glimpsed her phone, a pulse of anxiety surged. What if I just don't submit it? The thought flitted through her consciousness, enticing her with the safety of her current life, expectations low, risks minimal. But another part of her shot back, intimidatingly bold. What if you could have more? What if it's possible? During an infrequent lull in patrons, Sarah hesitated by the booth where she'd spent hours drafting her dreams. As she wiped down the table, she remembered the stark white page of her application and the growing confidence that surged through her as she wrote. But then the worry seeped back in. What would be expected of her once she applied? The fear of judgment from everyone around her, particularly from her co-workers and the familiar community in which she'd always felt both comfort and confinement, weighed heavily on her mind. Just do it, she whispered to herself under her breath, almost as if conjuring the courage with the words. It was a mantra she found solace in. Yet, a significant hurdle remained: sharing her aspirations with others. The mere thought made her palms sweat. As she grabbed a tray loaded with drinks, her eyes met Lucas, another waiter. Their banter during busy hours was light-hearted, but beneath the camaraderie lingered an unspoken understanding. They had both settled into roles that felt more like life preservers than ambitious pursuits. With trepidation, Sarah approached him. "Hey, can I ask you something?" Her voice was steadier than she felt. "Sure, what's up?" He leaned against the wall, relaxing momentarily before the evening rush. "I'm thinking about going back to school, like seriously. To become a nurse." The words tumbled out, and before her brain could counter that she might be laughed off, she pressed on. "It's not just a whim. I've been looking into programs and I'd like to submit my application today." His eyes widened slightly, an encouraging spark igniting. "That's awesome. You'd be great at that. Nursing is a big deal and you care about people. Remember when you helped that kid the other day?" The memory surfaced, a frightened child, trembling as she comforted him. The instinct to help had felt so natural in that moment. The memory now shimmered with legitimacy that her ambition was carefully tied to her identity. "I just worry about what everyone will think," Sarah admitted, vulnerability slipping through. "What if I'm not good enough? Honestly?" Lucas stepped closer, his expression sincere. "Who cares what they think? You know how hard it is to take that step. The ones who matter will support you." As the buzz of their conversation intertwined with the clinking of plates and the laughter of customers, Sarah felt the shadow of her previous self retreat. Today was a day where she could reshape not just her identity but also her future. "Well, there's the deadline," she mumbled, stepping back from the intimacy of the moment. "Do it. Don't wait." Lucas's earnest enthusiasm kindled a warmth within her. Returning to her station, Sarah made a decision, a bold step into a world that could yield infinite possibilities. She had been standing in her own way, tethered by her fears and the weight of complacency. As she wrapped up her shift, her mind raced with Fernando's encouragement. Her heart raced not with dread, but with a newfound grit. She returned to her booth once again, the laptop glowing with potential and opportunity. The moment had arrived, but as she prepared to click submit, uncertainty tightened around her. What if she failed? But deep down, she felt that familiar flicker of conviction gathering momentum. She would claim this moment, just as she hovered over the button. A familiar ping resonated from her phone. A message: "David. Remember, the fear of failure is a call to resilience. You got this." Perhaps she did. As she steadied her breath, ready to breach the threshold of her dreams, a final, powerful question lit up her mind. What if success awaited her on the other side of this leap? With a swift motion, she clicked submit. And with that, her life shattered the confines of the diner, flinging her into a realm unknown. The truth of her newfound path began to unfold in her mind. Yet even as she felt the thrill of overcoming hesitation, she also questioned the applications evaluated not just her academic readiness, but her entire self. Would she be able to endure the scrutiny of those very same dreams she had so courageously admitted to? With a night still young ahead of her, Sarah wondered what lay in store as she embarked on her exciting yet daunting journey. As the diner's neon sign flickered in the twilight, Sarah found herself ensconced in a cloud of anticipation and anxiety. The click of "submit" echoed in her mind, transforming the dull hum of the cafe into a lively symphony orchestrating her nerves. She had thrown herself into the unknown, but now reality began to settle what came next. After the shift, exhaustion seeped into her bones as she nestled into her small, cluttered apartment, the weight of both relief and worry saturating the air around her. Would she hear back soon? What would the response be? These questions danced relentlessly in her mind as she lay awake. She chided herself for not being able to find solace in her decision. Perhaps she was still too close to her old self, hesitant to fully embrace her potential. The days unraveled like a tightly wound spool. Post-shift conversations with coworkers dwindled. Sarah found herself drifting into contemplative silences, questioning her stepping out of her comfort zone. She was aware of the whispers. Had she really decided to pursue nursing? The notion haunted her like a specter. Every time she returned to work, the chatter around her felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. The diner had always been a backdrop of routine and reassurance, yet now it distorted into a space that magnified her aspirations, both exhilarating and terrifying. Lucas watched her, perceptive as ever. "You still holding on to that application?" he asked one night as she served his table. There was a layer of undemanding expectation in his tone, an affirmation that she hadn't failed. Yet inside, Sarah wrestled with her own tentative identity, wondering if she was worthy of a new trajectory. "I sent it," she confessed, the words tumbling out before she could second-guess them. "Now I'm just waiting." "That's a big deal," he replied with genuine enthusiasm, but Sarah felt something twist in her stomach. She wasn't celebrating yet. She wasn't quite ready to consider herself a candidate worthy of an academic program. The unpredictability of her dreams lingered like a storm cloud. Each interaction with her regulars began to feel like a comparison, a judgment on whether she was capable of more than serving coffee and food. One evening, a particularly challenging table erupted into chaos. A toddler began wailing inconsolably. The parents frantically searched for ways to appease the child, but the noise pierced through the clamor of the diner, cutting Sarah to the quick. It reminded her of her own fears, how vulnerability could lead to a reaction from the world that was far from understanding. Driven by an instinct deep within her, Sarah approached the family's booth. "Can I help?" she asked gently. Instead of saying more, she crouched down to the child's level and whispered softly, "Would you like the puppy from my pocket?" Smiling, she pulled a small, worn stuffed animal from her apron. To her surprise, the child's cry paused, eyes widening with intrigue. Within moments, the child settled, cradling the toy as soft giggles replaced cries. The parents expressed relief and gratitude, but more significantly, a sense of calm washed over Sarah. It was an insight. This was the connection she had craved, laying the groundwork for a future as a nurse. In that heartbeat of empathy, clarity struck. She wouldn't just fight for her dream, she needed to embody it. Just as she instinctively soothed the child, she would find ways to navigate her path. As patrons resumed their chatter, Sarah felt the weight of judgment lessen. She recognized her potential to create calm amidst chaos, to rise above inner doubts. With each passing table, her confidence solidified, the connections she forged serving as reminders of why she would step forward into nursing. When her phone pinged the following day, she opened the message with bated breath. It was from the school. A detailed response awaited her. As she stared at the screen, heart pounding, she thought again of the child, peaceful now, and how she wished to embrace these moments regularly, not just at the diner but in life. "Are you ready to embrace whatever comes next. She questioned herself, knowing the answer lay in the small act of courage she had summoned. As she opened the email, her pulse quickened, realization dawning that this would either propel her into uncharted territories or send her soul into shadowed comfort. The moment had arrived. What would the message reveal about her future? The uncertainty of the moment loomed large. The screen glimmered, unveiling the words she had longed to see. Congratulations. We are pleased to inform you Sarah's heart raced with each subsequent line, an intoxicating mix of disbelief and elation coursed through her. She had been accepted into the nursing program. The academy was finally going to welcome her, but with this newfound opportunity came an avalanche of questions about what to do next. For days, exhilaration and anxiety tangoed within her. Pride bubbled beneath the surface, while insecurities clawed at her. Was this some cosmic error? She whispered into the quiet of her apartment, alone with her thoughts. She studied the acceptance letter, her fingers tracing the words as if they could grant her the confidence she lacked. Would she truly be capable of meeting the demands of a nursing career? Returning to the diner after receiving the news, she was met with the familiar sense of coffee and pancakes that usually brought comfort. But today felt different. Each laugh, each clattering plate, echoed like mockery in her ears. Did her coworkers have any idea what newfound world she had just entered? They celebrated small victories, mere survival in their daily rituals, while she was about to step into the life-altering arena of healthcare. Hey, how's nursing school prep? Lucas looked up from his booth, eyes sparkling with curiosity. When she met his gaze, she felt a surge of desire swelling into something palpable, a need to confide in someone who had become an anchor amid her stormy self-doubts. It's real now, she admitted, instinctively crossing her arms as if to protect herself from the whirlwind of feelings. I just feel. She paused, grappling for the right words, afraid. His response held warmth, an understanding untainted by the competitive world outside. Fear is part of it all, he said thoughtfully. You'll find your footing. Just be you. His words rang, striking a chord deep within her. For the first time since her acceptance, she began to think that fear might be a sign of her growth, rather than a stumbling block. In her shifting reality, she started to plan for nursing school in earnest. Books stacked high in her apartment, she devoted hours to define what being a nurse would mean to her, watching lectures online late into the night. Her career choice drifted beyond a mere decision towards a holistic mission. Sarah realized how much she yearned to transform her connection to those around her, to learn, to inspire. An epiphany surged within her. She could anchor hope in the turbulent seas of others' lives, but along with eager planning came the sobering reality of change. Suddenly, work felt like a dredge, each shift more exhausting than the last. As the weeks rolled by, balancing routine and new aspirations became a task she had to navigate daily. One night, an uncharacteristically rude customer screamed at her for an unintentional mix-up with his order. "You're too slow." He spat with disdain, face twisted in contempt. The initial burning sting of his words recycled through her insecurities. The diner, once bustling with shared joy, cocooned her in intentional disregard. In that moment, the connection she'd felt with patrons faded. She took a deep breath, determined to respond with grace. "I'm sorry about the mix-up," she murmured, forcing the calm she had once extended to the crying toddler. They weren't her abusers, their frustrations were mere reflections of their own battles. Recognizing this, she turned the incident into a teaching moment about compassion, not only for others but for herself too. Each interaction became a reflection, a rehearsal for her future, as she sought ways to translate those tiny moments of connection into her new path. Striving for calm challenged her more significantly than ever. As her shifts progressed, her resolve solidified, even in moments of chaos, but beneath this surge of purpose lay an ever-looming question: what if the weight of expectations would crush her before she'd even begun? As she stood washcloth in hand, preparing for another diner rush, the heaviness gripped her heart. The bell chimed over the door, marking a new customer's entrance. It was an unfamiliar face, someone whose presence carried an intrigue. Someone powerful. Who would that be, and how would they affect her journey from here? What if this encounter tested her resolve more than ever before? The buzz of the diner faded as Sarah turned to face the newcomer. Clad in a tailored suit, the man exuded an air of authority that was impossible to ignore. He glanced around, searching for a spot, and their eyes briefly locked. A fleeting moment of recognition passed between them, stirring a strange mixture of curiosity and apprehension. As he approached the counter, the weight of his presence bore heavily on her. She straightened her posture, instinctively adopting the trained demeanor of a waitress. He slid into a booth near the window, where light streamed in, highlighting his sharp features as he busied himself with his phone. She was struck by the contrast between his polished sophistication and her own chaotic existence at the diner. "Coffee?" she asked, attempting to bridge the gap but feeling painfully out of her element. His gaze met hers, and for a second, she felt seen not just as a waitress, but as a person, a future nurse, and someone willing to face fear head-on. "Please," he replied, flashing a brief smile that disarmed her nerves. As she poured the coffee, she couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was no ordinary one. Thoughts raced through her mind. Was he here on business? Did he even notice the frenzied rhythm of the diner employees? Could he understand what it meant to be caught between hope and anxiety? She took a moment to breathe as she prepared his order, clutching the edge of the counter for stability. The din of laughter and clinking cutlery around her faded into a blur, narrowing her focus to a single thought. What if he held the key to unlocking a hidden potential within her? Was she brave enough to ask him something, anything, that could propel her forward? "Is everything okay?" she ventured, noticing his distracted gaze and furrowed brow. It was a genuine question, completely free of pretense. His eyes lifted from the phone, the tension seeming to ease momentarily. "Just stressed. My son he's having a rough time adjusting to a new environment," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "It makes it harder when you're trying to manage a business." Catechism, it suddenly clicked. The weight he carried was the same heaviness she had felt day after day, one that threatened to define her choices despite her aspirations. With a sudden instinct, she leaned in slightly, feeling the connection even as vulnerability surged. "Sometimes, all it takes is a little patience and kindness," Sarah offered. "Kids can adapt remarkably well, but they need a safe space to express their fears. My youngest brother, when he cried, would just try to listen. It helped him feel heard." The surprise in his gaze flickered with hope, and for a moment, she was no longer just a waitress serving coffee. She was a confidant, offering a morsel of insight that reminded her of the compassion fundamental to caregiving. "What do you do when you're overwhelmed?" he asked, genuinely curious, as if she, too, might hold insights worthy of note. "It helps to find a purpose," she replied, her voice steadying. "I want to be a nurse, to help people in their most vulnerable moments. It inspires me, and maybe that's something you can find with your son too." Just a little reminder of why that connection is important. The recognition in his eyes deepened, transforming his expression. Suddenly, his presence became less intimidating and more relatable, a reminder that everyone, regardless of status, grappled with life's pressures. As Sarah walked away, her heart raced with an exhilarating charge. The brief exchange had ignited something within her, a realization that guidance could exist in the tiniest of interactions, and that her chosen path wasn't a solitary pursuit. But as she returned to the kitchen, her manager's urgent voice called for her attention, overshadowing her triumph. "Sarah! I need you on the floor. We're swamped." The day's chaos beckoned her back into routine, yet the encounter lingered, igniting a flicker of ambition within. If she could delve deeper into her own journey, what else might she discover about herself? Who else might cross her path? That could shape her becoming. The bell chimed again, signaling another rush. She had no idea how her professional development would unfold, but the urge to explore expanded beyond the diner. How would she navigate her nursing aspirations amongst the fractured pieces of her experiences? The weight of uncertainty loomed larger than ever before, yet she felt a growing determination to embrace it. Who knew, she thought as she wiped the perspiration from her brow while bracing for the next wave of customers, the ever-changing tapestry of human interactions might hold the very keys I sought for my future. Little did she know, a life-altering revelation was waiting just around the corner, a chance meeting that could either push her closer to her ambitions or send her spiraling into a distinctly unclear fate. The clatter of plates and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee engulfed Sarah as she moved swiftly between tables, her mind still lingering on the man in the booth. His eyes, filled with intensity and depth, had unsettled her in a way she hadn't expected. For a brief moment, she had felt seen, understood. It was a stark contrast to the everyday interactions she navigated at the diner, where small talk was often devoid of any real connection. With her hands sinking into the routine of serving breakfasts and refilling drinks, she felt a tension build within her. Was it enough to simply go through the motions day in and day out? The thought gnawed at her, reverberating along the edges of her ambition. She longed for something more than this cycle of orders and tips. Customers flooded in during the morning rush, and each passing moment seemed to amplify her awareness of her own shortcomings. She delivered meals with practiced precision, yet her mind occasionally drifted back to the man and his son. What had he seen in her words of encouragement? Did he sense the flickering determination within her? "Sarah! Get the coffee for table 6. Her manager called, pulling her out of her reverie. The urgency in the command sent a rush of adrenaline through her. It reminded her of the chaos nurses faced daily, a setting she found both intimidating and exhilarating. During the brief lulls between tables, Sarah's thoughts spiraled into a cycle of doubt. She yearned to study nursing, but her commitments felt overwhelming. How could she balance work, school, and the demands of family? Each worry became a weight pressing her down, threatening to extinguish the flames of ambition that had sparked during her conversation with the CEO, yet, she could hear his words echoing in her mind, the weight of his stress resonating with her own struggles. "What do you do when you're overwhelmed?" he had asked her, revealing a vulnerability she could relate to. It instilled in her a sense of responsibility to take her aspirations seriously, as though her potential wasn't just tied to her own future, but perhaps to others like him, who might need encouragement on their journeys. Determined to navigate her chaos with purpose, Sarah started to consider the steps she could take. Could she apply for nursing school late this semester? Could she manage her work hours and study? Each question felt like a pebble in the river of her uncertainty, disrupting the surface and challenging her to consider its depths. She took a moment to breathe, centering herself amid the fast-paced clamor around her. It was in this fleeting pause that clarity emerged. If she truly wanted to become a nurse, it was imperative to create a balance that supported her dreams. It was time to confront the fear that had held her back, the fear of sacrifice and failure. "Sarah, more coffee for the corner booth." A customer motioned for attention, and she snapped back to focus. As she poured the coffee, the idea began to excite her. Each task she completed wasn't merely serving food, they were acts of stepping stones toward her future. Perhaps with each interaction, she could hone her communication skills and compassion, attributes vital for a nurse. With renewed determination, she approached her manager after the rush. "Can we talk about my schedule? I'd like to make some adjustments so I can start applying to schools." The manager raised an eyebrow, a mixture of surprise and curiosity in their gaze. "Really? What is prompting this change?" "This is not just a job for me. It's part of a bigger plan. I want to be a nurse, and I need to start making choices that reflect that," she replied, her heartbeat steady and assured. There it was, her truth. The words that had formed in her mind solidified into a promise to herself. Each decision from here on out would be aimed at building the life she envisioned. As her manager considered her words, Sarah felt a rush of possibilities flood her mind. What if this was merely the beginning? She felt the spark of ambition igniting within, urging her to rise above the constraints of her current situation. "All right," her manager finally said, a hint of respect woven in their tone. "Let us see what we can work out." In that moment of affirmation, Sarah realized the power of voicing her ambitions. It could lead not just to her personal growth, but perhaps to her influence on others. If she could turn her aspirations into actionable steps, who knows how many other lives she might touch along the way. But as she stepped back onto the bustling floor, the unsettling notion emerged: would the challenges ahead be too great? Would she find herself locked in the ever-tightening grip of self-doubt once more? In the distance, the bell rang loudly as yet another crowd surged into the diner, the noise washing over her like waves threatening to pull her under. She welcomed the chaos, feeling more alive than ever, yet sharply aware that each encounter would forge a different path, a path laden with choices, challenges, and revelations about who she was meant to become. The weeks that followed unfolded like a script, each day brimming with the cadence of growth and casting shadows of doubt that she was determined to outlast. After a reassessment of her schedule, Sarah plunged into an exhilarating whirlwind of preparing for nursing school. With each shift at the diner, she dedicated herself more fiercely to her responsibilities. Conversations became richer, even the mundane exchanges now echoed with purpose. A heartfelt "How are you today?" transformed into an authentic inquiry that resonated with the regulars. Her connection with Lucas deepened, transitioning from casual banter to meaningful dialogues about dreams and aspirations. He became a sounding board as she shared ideas, fears, and triumphs that accompanied her preparation for nursing school. "You're steadily on your way, Sarah. Remember our first chats? You've outgrown those hesitations," he reminded her one evening after the rush. "Sometimes it feels surreal. I'm afraid of messing it all up," she admitted, pouring coffee with slightly trembling hands. "Messing up is part of the process," he countered, shrugging. "You need to learn to fly, right? No one fully soars without a few falls." His support became a beacon for her, anchoring her on stormy days when doubt crept in. As she immersed herself in nursing texts during quiet hours, the language of healthcare slowly became second nature. The passion she once glimpsed hesitantly now radiated through her conversations and intentions. She felt a profound shift, no longer just a waitress limited to serving coffee. She was a storyteller of human care, weaving her narrative into every drink she poured and every patron she connected with. One afternoon, while preparing for yet another rush, her phone buzzed again, a familiar pitter-patter of notifications lighting up her screen. It was another message, not from David this time, but an email confirming her application for nursing school and inviting her to an open house event for prospective students. Her heart thumped wildly, the validation felt electric, charging her spirit. That night, the neon glow of the diner blazed brighter, illuminating her resolve. "Sarah," called the manager, beckoning her over one evening, urgency etched on their face. "I need you to cover for Lisa tomorrow." "Of course," she nodded, feeling ready for any challenge, no longer intimidated by unforeseen tasks. "Also, I need you to interact with customers more. Bring your insight to the forefront. Word spreading about how you comfort the kids. That's a rare talent you have." His praise enveloped her, igniting a newfound strength within. The cracks of her previous self-judgment, once holding her hostage, began to close. During the rush, her lively conversation seemed to inspire other staff, bringing a ripple of good energy that shifted the atmosphere. Her assertiveness grew alongside her ambitions, feeding her hunger for becoming a nurse. As the weeks faded into months, Sarah found herself standing at the open house event for the nursing school, embraced by the tangible energy surrounding her. Guided by hope, she stepped through the entrance with palpable excitement, mingling with fellow students and faculty. The tour felt illuminating. Each room emblazoned potential, and each face reflected the ambition she felt ignite within herself. Weeks later, the acceptance letter arrived, replete with a sense of finality. This wasn't just acceptance into a program, it was a catalyst for a new era brimming with possibility. After sharing the news with Lucas, his happiness for her radiated like sunlight, illuminating her path just a few degrees further than she had anticipated. The proverbial shift had fused her days at the diner with her academic venture, and she began managing her time with poise. Fitting study hours into her schedule, she balanced plates with textbooks. Her journey felt solidified, her purpose crystallized in shared laughter and moments where patient care danced at the fingertips. Point one afternoon, amidst chaos, a familiar face stepped into the diner, a dad with his son, the one she had comforted weeks before. Recognition flickered among their exchanges. "You're back." She smiled warmly, instantly securing experienced familiarity. When the child clung to the stuffed animal she had given him, Sarah's heart warmed. "They can't stop talking about you. You have a gift," the father said, eyes glimmering with warmth. "You're going to make an incredible nurse." His words shielded her from self-doubt. The assurance wrapped around her, defending her spirit when the tremors of fear buzzed quietly in the background. She had conquered many obstacles, and people saw her potential, seeing what she had once struggled to acknowledge. As she traversed through the realities of nursing school, reveling in newfound knowledge and fostering connections, the triumphant moment emerged not just professionally, but personally. She had advanced far beyond those chaotic diner walls into a space where her identity blossomed as a healthcare advocate. In delivering care, she felt limitless. The resonance of calm she had offered to patrons now transformed. From chaotic interactions to nurturing conversations, each connection reminded her of her deep-rooted dream. This journey not only fulfilled her ambitions but also enriched her understanding of human experience. She stood tall in firm faith, prepared and confident about the journey she had chosen. Sarah had not just begun a new chapter, she discovered the vibrant essence of who she had always been, no longer the waitress who soothed cries but a nurse ready to guide others through their vulnerabilities, and so began her path toward a future saturated with the dreams she had once hesitated to unfold. Sarah emerged from the highly palpable essence of the diner, embracing opportunities revealed in the connections she fostered, each step solidifying a declaration not just of ambition, but of self-worth. Her story had unfolded magnificently, leaving her empowered to take the inevitable leaps into the unknown ahead. Before you leave, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that could inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Every click makes a difference. Tell us in the comments what you felt about Sarah's journey and your theories on what lies ahead for her. Your insights matter. And finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the inspiration. Your actions can shape someone's path today.